Thank you all for having us today. We're really excited to share with you how to get started with After Effects and animation. And just want to have a show of hands, like how many of you have used After Effects before? Just wondering. No? A couple? Okay, that's great. And I guess all of you have used like Adobe software before, right? Oh, okay. You all have used After Effects before. That's great. That's great. So yeah, we're gonna cover some basic stuff, some animation principles, and some great UI UX animation. I'll share my screen later. But first of all, I just want to cover two things. And the first one is like our teaching philosophy at Motion Circles. So basically, our teaching is a bit different from what you'll find anywhere else online. Our classes and teachings are mostly project-based, and we really dig into the fundamentals and to make sure you understand the why behind everything we teach. So everything we teach at Motion Circles are not just merely a technique. It's something that's relevant to our daily work, and it's something that you can apply right away to any other project. And you will see and understand what I'm saying when we get into the lesson today. And we also apply the 80-20 rule to all of our teachings. So if you're familiar with the 80-20 rule, it states that only 20% of your activities will account for 80% of the results. So it's a universal rule for mostly everything we do in life. And we truly believe in this rule. So if only 20% of our activity and efforts will account for 80% of the results, why don't we just focus on the 20% that matters the most? And we can fast track our progress. So we'll teach you the 20% that matters the most, and that will generate 80% of the results and get you past 80% of the people who are learning this thing at the same time. And the second thing I want to address is like, people may ask, why are we still using After Effects, and why don't we use some other software that's easier to learn? So my answer to that is like, first of all, After Effects is still industry standard when it comes to motion graphics and animation. And it's still the most flexible, most powerful, most capable software when it comes to animation. And the good thing is like, if you get started with After Effects, you will have unlimited growth within the software, and your creativity will not be limited by the software itself. And it's also the Adobe's family. So a lot of you have already used Photoshop or Illustrator. It's the same logic behind it. It's similar functions. So it's really easy to make the transition between Adobe softwares. And some people may say like After Effects is so hard to learn. It also goes back to the 80-20 rule that I mentioned before. If you're trying to learn like everything, 100% of the software, it will be overwhelming for sure. And it also will be intimidating. But if we only focus on the 20% that will get you the 80% of the results, you'll never say it's hard to learn anymore. So that's what we'll do today. We'll focus on the 20% that will get you the most results. So our goal for today, after the 2 hours today, I want you to tell me like truthfully if you still think After Effects is hard to learn, and if I can just change your notion and from starting today, like you don't feel After Effects so hard anymore. I think that's mission accomplished for today. And after we'll get into the lesson. Do we have any questions after my introduction? No questions? We'll get started. Awesome, awesome. Okay, let's get started. First of all, wait, let me see. First of all, like just want to start from the beginning. If you are unfamiliar with After Effects, just want to do a quick like intro to the panel. This is like what happens when you open After Effects. We can just click on this composition, and then let's create a new composition. Let's try 1920 by 1080. That's the standard size for HD video. We'll name this one to main comp. And then for the frame rate, we can do 30 frames per second. For industry, we either do like 30 frames and 25, 24. There's different scenarios, like mostly, for me, like for online, I mostly do like 30 frames per second. It's very easy, and is the most common. Duration is changed to 10-second, background color to black, click OK. And now we got this panel here. Sorry, I still need to minimize a couple more things. It's covering my menu. So first of all, like just want to introduce this panel. We have the preview panel in the center. That's where we have the preview. And then let's create a solid layer first. Now you can see on the left-hand side, we have our project panel. This is where we manage our files, manage the project. And then down here, we have the timeline. This is where we're going to animate, put keyframes on there. And over here on the left, this is layer panel. This is similar to the Photoshop layers panel. The only difference is that each layer has a timeline that goes with the layer itself. And then within the timeline, we can animate different properties. let's go down this drop-down menu over here. For all the object in After Effects, the most basic properties are the position, the scale, the rotation, and the opacity. So these four are the most basic property that we can animate for all the different elements in After Effects. And on the right-hand side, we have the Effects and Presets panel. This is a default view, by the way. Like if you download After Effects and then you don't change anything, this is the default view that is going to show you all these different panels. And this, from the effects and presets, we can choose like different effects, like the drop shadow effects, the gradient effect, and all the different other ones. And over here on the right, we have a couple useful ones. We have the character panel where you can change the text, and then the paragraph, the align tool. I think these three are the most common that we're going to use. So that's kind of the intro to the panels. It's going to be a quick one. And then let me open the file that I prepared. Broken down today's lesson into different sections. So we're going to go through all these different lessons. Depending on the time, we'll see if I can go through everything. Let's go to the first one. First of all, I just want to talk about a couple concepts before we jump into the animation. These concepts are really important. These are the overarching rule for animation. So once you understand the overarching rule, it's really easy for you to understand animation better and to learn, like when you see good videos, good animation, you can analyze those animation yourself once you understand the rule. So first thing I want to talk about is the easing. Let me copy these two layers. So let's go to my main composition. This is going to be my working area. Now we have this circle here and we have a background. It's pretty easy. Let's go to drop-down menu here. Let's animate the position property. It's very simple to do. Let's go forward 20 frames. And then we can change the position. So in terms of easing, this is a standard animation that we have in After Effects. It's a linear keyframe. Once we add the keyframe, we have this animation going on from left to right. It's very simple. However, this is only a default animation because right now there's no speed change. The speed is constant going from left to right. And in terms of easing, if we select the 2 keyframe, right click, go to keyframe assistant, easy ease. Now we'll have an easing animation. If I play this animation, you can see there's a gradual speed change from the start to the finish. So easing basically means that the gradual acceleration and deceleration of the object, just like when you're riding a bike, you will not just start right away with a constant speed going all the way. You will gradually speeding up and then reaching maybe the higher speed in the middle section. And then if you want to slow down, you will gradually slow down. So this is the easing that we talk about. We have to understand that in real world, nothing moves at a constant speed. Everything moves with a ease. Whatever we do, there's always acceleration of the speed and the deceleration of the speed. So that's the first concept I want to introduce, which is really important. The secret to the great animation is to understand and try to mimic how things move in the real world. And sometimes we also exaggerate all these movements to make it look more, saturated, polished. So that's the easing lesson I want to talk about. This is very standard. And the next thing we want to talk about is timing and spacing. So in terms of easing, there's different ways we can manipulate the easing. You can see these 3 different balls, circles traveling. They're all taking the same amount of time to finish the animation from 0 seconds all the way over here. We have 20 frames. So this animation is taking 20 frames to complete. However, visually, you can see it's a bit different. The way they move, if I solo the first one, this one is actually moving fast in the front end and then slowly easing into position. And then for the second one, this one, you can see this one is moving the fastest in the middle. And then the third one, this one is slowly easing in first and then finish really abruptly at the end. So in terms of timing spacing, let me open another composition here. We need to understand how animation works. And there are two concepts. The first concept is timing. So basically, if I have the stick going from start to finish in 30 frames, the timing of our animation is 30 frames. Basically, the animation itself takes 30 frames to finish. So that's very easy to understand. And what happens is within this 30 frames, we have all these sticks that's happening, like showing up on screen for each frame, so that we have this illusion that our object is animating, and this is the first line over here. This is animation, and this is what is actually happening within the 30 frames. So that's a standard animation without any easing. That's the default animation. So that's the timing. And then for the spacing, what spacing is the animation that's happening in between those, from the first keyframe to the last keyframe, everything that's happening in between. Over here, this is the spacing of our animation. So basically, when we talk about good animation, we not only need to adjust the timing of the animation. Everyone knows how to set a keyframe from the start to end. However, we need to manipulate the spacing of the animation in order to make it look better. And the way we manipulate the spacing is by using a thing called graph editor. So if I select the two keyframes, go to keyframe assistant, easy ease, and then let me turn off the interpolation of this. If I go to this graph editor here, this is a most important feature in After Effects is the graph editor. And there are two types of graphs. If I click on this menu here, we have the value graph and the speed graph. We're going to do the speed graph first. If I drag this curve like this is going to change the spacing of our animation. And basically, this graph is speed across time. On the x-axis is the time, and then the y-axis is the speed. And once we have this curve going over here, you can see this top point here. This is where the speed is going to be the fastest. And then over here at the start, we have a speed at 0, slowly accelerating, reaching the top speed, and then decelerating. This is how we change the spacing of our animation. It's inside this graph editor. If I play this animation now, let's see what happens. You can see our stick now is having a little bit of energy. And if I drag this curve all the way, let's have a really extreme curve like this. So right now you can see my speed is really at the highest point in the middle section of my movement. And if I play this, this is the animation that we have. Without changing the timing at all, I'm able to adjust only the spacing with the graph editor to achieve different animation styles. And this is actually the difference between a good animator and a beginner animator, because like a lot of people, when they first start learning animation, they only know how to set keyframes from start to end, and then they only manipulate the timing. However, if you are able to manipulate the spacing, there's going to be infinite opportunities and infinite styles of animation that you can try. Let's say, like if I drag this curve all the way to the left and then drag this curve over here with extreme easing to the end, it's going to change our animation again. Basically, my stick is shooting in with top speed and then slowly easing into position. And then we can also do like different curves like this one, slowly accelerating and then all of a sudden stop at the end. So that's how we manipulate the spacing of our animation. It's all within this graph editor. If I show you the visual interpolation of the easing over here, you can see, let me select the two keyframe, go to the graph editor. With this curve, so if I drag this curve over here, the handle, you can see there's a speed influence that says 82%, 82, 77%. So that's the influence that we have. The more the influence, the faster the speed. Right now, I can change the influence to 80% on both sides. So the animation is symmetrical, and then let's see what it looks like. This is a visual interpolation. Basically, what happens is all the stick that we see that is spaced out evenly from this linear keyframe, if we adjust the spacing, this is what happens. There's more sticks at the beginning of the animation, meaning everything is moving really slowly accelerating. And then there's bigger spacing, bigger gap in the middle section over here. This means animation is happening really fast in the middle. And if we play this, so I'll turn on the stick as well. This is our animation preview, and then we have the visual interpolation. I need to sync the curve as well. So 80% of influence on both sides. And this is what happens. If we compare the two, this is our linear keyframe with the defaults, no easing at all. And then this is our easing keyframe. So this is a really important concept within animation. Once you understand this, you can see within the graph editor, there's so many different possibilities that we can do in terms of how we can animate and get the animation under full control. And that's it about the timing and spacing. Do we have any questions for the timing and spacing lesson? No? All
Yeah.
good?
Are you gonna go over like when to use like certain like speed velocities, like
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
types of
definitely.
easing?
Definitely. We're going to cover a little bit when we actually dive into the animation. And this is the thing that I prepared. I can show you for now. So this is one of the animation that I prepared. We used a speed graph to animate this animation. And there's a couple of scenarios that we're going to use this. And then this is another one that I prepared. So you can see there's easing to all of my movement within this animation. If everything were to just be like default easing, it would be pretty boring. But once we add easing to it, there's going to be a lot of juice to our animation, and the animation itself is going to come to life. And so definitely we're going to cover when to use like different speed velocities. So now before we get started for the next one, I'll show you like a good example. Let me show you a demo reel from this like animation studio called Ordinary Folk. This is really good demo reel. Just pay attention to the easing and like all the different movement of speed changes within this demo reel. You see, there's like a ton of easing in this piece here, and like the secret to great animation is to master the easing and understand the timing and spacing for sure. And like this is a 20% that'll give you the 80% result that we talk about. Like if you want to learn animation and you focus on a lot of people when they started, they focus on like techniques and special effects, and they go to like YouTube to learn all these different, ways of how you can make like one thing fancy. And then that's not really relevant to like the daily work at all. Sometimes like you learn one thing on YouTube and then you will never use it again. So that's not how you become a great animator. However, if you master the timing and spacing and the easing, that's how you can create a video similar to this one. Like you can definitely see like there's a ton of like easing work in all these animations, and that's what separates the beginner animator to like a professional one. It's the easing, it's the timing and spacing, and also like there's also a lot of animation principles as well. We're gonna cover a couple in the next section, but yeah, that's all about timing and space. So the next section, I want to cover anticipation and overshoot. This is a animation principle. It's also one of the, I want to say most important because like for great animation, I think there should always include a anticipation and overshoot. Let me demonstrate what is anticipation and overshoot. Let me go to my working area here. Let me delete all the keyframes. Now we just have one circle in the center. So we can set a keyframe, go forward 20 frames, and then I'll drag this animation all the way. Oh, I got it. And then now we have this animation going from left to right on a linear keyframe. Let's do a easing to it. Go to keyframe assistant, easy ease. Then let's go to the graph editor. Right now, this is a system default easing. And if I select the second button here, this is, let's go to the value graph instead of speed graph. We kind of like briefly touched the speed graph, but now we can talk about the value graph. Basically, value graph is a bit different. You can see over here, if I adjust this handle, drag them all the way out, on value graph, basically it's controlling one value of your object. Right now, we are under this X position, so we are only controlling the X position of my circle. If I drag a curve like this is going to be our animation. It basically just ease out, similar to the speed graph, but this, on the value graph, the speed is actually the steepness of the curve. If you draw like a line along this curve, a tangent line along this curve, the steepness of that tangent line is actually the speed of this object. So basically, if I draw a line here at the beginning, it would be a flat line along this curve. So it means that flat means 0, speed is 0. But if I draw a tangent line over here in the center around this curve, this is where my speed is going to be the fastest because the tangent line was going to be the steepest. So the steeper the line, the slope is, the faster the speed is. That's the trick for the value graph. And let's say if I drag this curve all the way to make this curve really steep, like 90-degree over here, you can see this is like a really steep slope here. This is after we draw this is going to be our animation. It's similar to if we drag both handles on the speed graph, and then we have this curve here. You can see in the center, the speed is the fastest. So this curve corresponds to this value graph curve like this. And now we just want to talk about anticipation and overshoot. So basically, anticipation is the preparation before a movement, meaning if my circle wants to go to the right, I want it to go to the left first. So I want to go forward a couple frames, and then let's add a keyframe from here. Click on this dot, add keyframe. And then before it goes to the right, I want to overshoot, anticipate the movement, meaning I want to go to the left first. So the ball is going to slowly moving to the left first before it shoots to the right. So that's anticipation. And overshoot is the opposite of anticipation. It's before the object land in position. Before it lands, I want to go backward a couple frames and add a keyframe over here, as if this object already passed the final position. It's moving too fast. It's already past the final position. And then it's going to recoil back into the final position. If I zoom in, you can see I drag this circle like slightly to the right. And now we have this animation here. Almost like a bouncing animation. So this is one of the most important animation principle. It's how you make a boring animation or a boring icon or like a logo come to life. Just with this one simple tweak to our keyframe, I just simply add 2 more keyframes. And now you can see this ball has already got some life to it. If I select all the keyframe, go to this graph editor, we are still inside the value graph. Now we can even drag this curve down a bit more to have this anticipation go even further, and then we can adjust the curve. So this part, like you can just play around with it. I'm just like, randomly dragging those handles, and you can see there's infinite possibilities. Once we understand how we can manipulate the timing and spacing and the curves, you can make this animation do whatever you want. And now we have like much exaggerated anticipation. It's going backward like even more. And then if we want to give it more overshoots, we can actually push this circle all the way to the back. And then what we can do is, let's say we go forward 5 frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right now, 5 frames is going back to this original position. However, I don't want it to settle here. I want it to do a couple bounces as well. So let's go forward 3 keyframes, 1, 2, 3. And then I'm gonna add a keyframe over here. And then I'm just holding down like Command key. Once I hold down Command key, you can see my mouse cursor become this add button, and then I can add a keyframe on here. And now I can just drag this curve to give it a bounce. I'm just zooming in over here, and then we can give it a bounce. So this is right now just for demonstration purposes. I'll show you how to do it later on. But this is like just a bouncing demonstration. Once I have this, basically I added 2 more keyframes at the end and adjusted the curve. This is going to be our animation now. You see, that's how we make this animation come to life. Now we have a little bounces at the end. So that's the anticipation and overshoot that we want to talk about. And after this, we also want to add a bit squash and stretch to our circles here. So squash and stretch is basically another animation principle. We can use it a special effects over here. From here, let's add an echo effect. Let's go select the layer, add an echo effect to our layer. And then we can change the echo operator to maximum. Let's change this echo time to 002. And then let's add 10 copies of the echo. If I do that, let's see what happens to my animation. So that's what happens. This is almost, we don't have a squash here, but we have a stretch here. Basically, I'm adding 10 copies of the same circle and then give it a delay time so that they're all combining together. If I add it, maybe put it down to 6. So this is going to be our animation after we add the squash and stretch. You can see all the possibilities now because like after we apply these animation principles, that's essentially how you create a great animation. No matter how, like if you don't understand these timing and spacing or these animation principles, it'll be really hard to just manipulating the animation within like the timing. It's really hard to give it life and then do whatever you want. But once you apply these animation principles, that's how you can combine them. And if we have like more elements in the scene, everything is going to moving on its own style, and then you can control everything. So that's about the 2 animation principle that I want to introduce today, the anticipation overshoots and the squash and stretch. So yeah, that's it for this section. Do we have any questions for now?
Why
No?
would you use like the value graph over the speed graph?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. A lot of people ask me that. So it's really good questions. Basically, the speed graph is, I would see speed graph as the most versatile, most flexible. Like you can use anything for speed graph. Like to me, I think once you get the hang of speed graph, you don't even need value graph. But speed graph is really hard to manipulate because it doesn't, sometimes it's really hard to control. And for value graph is when you control the value. Basically, if I think I forgot to show you something. If I have like a square, let me draw a square over here. And then I'm going to change the color. So if I hit this drop-down menu, you can see all these are the different values we have for the object. And in terms of value graph, if you want to control these properties, one value, you're going to use a value graph. The only difference is like in terms of position property, there's actually one property that's controlling 2 things because there's a X position and the Y position. So in order to use a value graph, we have to separate the dimensions. We right-click separate dimensions, and then we have the X position and Y position. And only if after we separate the dimensions, can we use the value graph to control this value, because the value graph only give you one control over one property. And the speed graph basically controls the speed for everything. And sometimes it's really hard to use a value graph if you have like a curved path. Let's say if we didn't separate the dimensions, and then if we have this like thing that goes on the curved path, maybe it just goes like random from here to here. And then we have this curved path. In this case, since the X and Y position are combined within one property, it's really hard to control with value graph because the value graph only control one property. And in this case, you can only use the speed graph to control the animation. So yeah, that answers your question. Like speed graph is for everything, and value graphs is to control like one property. Value graph is much easier to get the hang of than the speed graph, and the speed graph needs more practice, I think. Let's take a look at another example of another studio that I found. This is called Ravie. And let's take a look at their demo reel 2023. Just pay attention to the easing, like we said, and then see if there's any like squash and stretch, anticipation and overshoots, all these animation principle that they used in their video. Let's take a look. Yeah, so that looks pretty awesome. You can see they have like a lot of easing in all of their animation. And that's basically how you make, your animation stand out, and how you can, like, although they do have like great visuals as well, all these glow effect and the great storyboard, great illustrations, but in terms of animation, you can see there's a ton of easing to it. A lot of them have like extreme curves.
I have a
And that,
question. Oh, sure.
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, we are in this is a 2D basic animation, but when we see this kind of reel, all these elements are separated to get this kind of animation, right? Or like in this case, right, in the logo, Ravie.com, I can see
Yeah.
how they're like probably two objects, right? Like the small
Yeah.
point that is jumping and then their namesake. But when we see the complete, when there is like, complexity of images and graph, are they usually separated by objects or?
Yeah, that's a good question too.
Mhm.
So basically, I get what you're saying. We're gonna touch on that really quick, but I want to explain that. Basically, like whatever you want to animate has to be separated. Like there's sometimes there's complex scenes like this one. Like this is gonna be a collaboration between illustrators and animators, motion designers. So basically, Illustrator would design this whole scene, and like she doesn't have to separate everything. Just basically a communication between the animator. The animator has to decide what he wants to animate within the scene. If he wants to animate this like block, or like this, you see this handle over here on the slot machine, or maybe some buttons, or like this traffic light, whatever. So if he wants to animate those things has to be separated from the whole scene in order to animate. And sometimes like you can still group a lot of things together. Let's say like this background building here, you don't really want to do anything with it. You can just like group this as one big, thing, or like big group. And then you can also like, sometimes we also, once we have the Illustrator, we import them into After Effects, and then we overlay different elements within After Effects to give it extra like, movement or extra elements just to make it more polished. Like this thing here, we can just add it after we import them inside the After Effects. So yeah, to answer your question, like everything that moves has to be separated. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Sometimes like things are not that complex because After Effects has a lot of like different functions, like repeaters. You can repeat a lot of different stuff. Like this stripe here, like basically you just animate one thing, just one line, and then you just like duplicate a bunch of them, and that's how you get like this complex animation. So like you can see this one, sometimes you just animate one thing, and then you stack offset the layers so that they come out at different time, and all of a sudden you get this like awesome looking animation. So we're going to show you a couple simple things when we get into the actual animation. I'll show you how to like get really simple animation, how to do like make it complex and then with simple methods. So yeah, that's for that. All good. Cool. We'll go to the next one. Next one is a simple one. It's called trim path. Just want to briefly touch on this. I don't know, maybe you already know about this. Basically, it's a very simple effect. And it's also important because sometimes we use this one a lot. Let's draw a ellipse tool. Just draw like a circle. And then let's go inside. Let's turn off the fill. I would only have a stroke that goes around. I'll turn up the stroke maybe to 5 points. And now we have this circle. And then under the layer, we can go to add a trim path effect. So the trim path is basically just, if I select this and percentage, what you can see is it's drawing on this path. It's drawing like just along the stroke of this shape here to complete the path. And this is a good way to animate. It's a simple one. So all I need to do is to hit a keyframe at the start, maybe change it to 0, and then go forward 20 frames. Over here you have 20. I'm using a shortcut. It's Command Shift right arrow to go forward 20 frames. So Command Shift right arrow, go forward 10 frames, and then I hit 2 times, that's 20 frames. Change it to 100%, and then we're gonna do like a easing to it. Let's go to the graph editor. Let's go to the speed graph. Let's change it to maybe like around 80% of influence. So let's see. So basically that's the animation. We're going to use this a lot in the UI UX because we have a lot of shapes. So that's why I want to include this. Within the UI UX setting, there's a lot of buttons and like icons, that's how we animate the icons. If we have an icon, I would just like use the trim path to draw it on like this. It's really simple. And another trick we can do, just quickly show you, if we have the start to animate from 0 to 100 as well, and then let's right click from, let's do an easy ease, go to the graph editor, change it to, oops, it's too big. So let's change to 80% of influence. That's good. And then I want to offset these keyframes. I want to drag the ending all the way back to align the end of the starting keyframe. And once we do that, basically these two are all from 0 to 100%. The start and end 0% and 100%. And then I'm just like dragging this one to there. And this is what we get. So basically we have a draw on, draw off. And if we just pull it back a little bit, yeah, that's the trim path. We can do a lot of things with the trim path effect. So I want to.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to ask this question very quickly. Does these only work with shapes that are built within After Effects, or what about if I drop, let's say a circle from Illustrator? Like if I drop my own graph, will it also work?
Yeah, definitely. It works from the Illustrator file as well. So the one thing is like we can let me show you quickly. If I draw this in Illustrator. So the thing I need to do, first of all, like we can't just import this Illustrator file inside After Effects. Let's say if I have like two objects, let's demonstrate here. So I have two shapes here that I want to animate. Let's say this is the illustration. We need to prepare this Illustrator file first before we can import, because right now these two are on the same layer. If I go to the layer panel in Illustrator, there's only one layer right now within this document. So what I need to do is I need to go to this menu button. I need to go release to layer sequence. And then I need to go select the two layers, drag them outside. And now I can delete the first layer because it's empty now. So right now we have two objects that's on separated layers. Only this way are we able to import this file inside After Effects and then animate these two things individually. So this is how we separate layers. Let's say if we have like the illustration, I'm going to show you, we do have another illustration file that I'll show you later on. But let's save this one. There's one more step I need to do. Let's save this one, call this one test. Click OK, and then let's go back to After Effects. To import the file, I can just double click in this projects panel, double click, and then it's under this storyboard test. Over here, I need to make sure when I import, it's imported as composition, and then click on open. Now we have this test layer. Let's double click this test. And now you can see we have these two shapes that's imported from Illustrator. And right now they are showing as Illustrator file. They're not shape. So back to your question, like, are we able to animate the shape from Illustrator? We need to do one more thing. We need to right click, go to create shapes from vector layer. So basically we need to convert the Illustrator file into a shape layer inside After Effects. Same thing with this one, in order to animate within After Effects. If you don't want to do like any path property changes, you can also, like if you only want to animate the position changes, we don't need to do that. We can just, drag this layer, do some position changes. Everything is in here. But if you want to do like a couple other things, if this one has a stroke and then you want to add the trim path, we need to, right click, go to create shapes from vector layer. So that's how we import from Illustrator to After Effects.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
That's great. Okay, next one, we'll go into talk about anchor point, parenting, and null object. These are kind of like related. It's also similar concept to Photoshop. Photoshop has anchor points. Parenting and null maybe only After Effects, but I'll just copy these ones into my composition here. And then I'll delete this one. We have these three shapes here. Anchor points just basically this like anchor point that's on this object. Each layer has an anchor point. And then if you go inside the property, if I go to rotate, oops, right now it's parented. I don't want to parent right now. Okay. So if you want to rotate this circle, right, it's basically rotating based on the position of the anchor point. If I want to change the anchor point position, I'll go to this pen behind tool. and drag the anchor point maybe over here. And then after we have the anchor point outside of the circle, we can just rotate it again. Now it's rotating based on the position of the anchor point. So that's easy to understand. Another thing is parenting. Parenting is basically, if I have two layers that I want to use the same animation as the middle layer, let's say if I have a position change, oops, let's just put in a position animation for this middle layer from here to here. And then let's go use the ease. And now, if I want to adapt the keyframe, I don't have to copy these keyframes because I want to save maybe like these layers for a different animation on its own. I just want to adapt the same animation from this layer. I would just go select the two layers and then use this pick width, drag it all the way to this layer here. And now in the parent setting, you can see it's parented to layer 3. And now if I play the animation, these 3 layers is going to move at the same time. So that's how we parent layers. It's also very useful when we do complex animation. Sometimes we want to animate these 2 objects on its own, and also want these 2 objects to go with another object. So we only have like one position property that we can set keyframes. But this way, we can have 2 different layers of animation. One layer is on its own, and then the other layer would be the parent animation that's on the other layer. And then if we want to do more complex, there's going to be like 3, 4, 5 layer of animation to make it more complex. So this is just an introduction. Basically, we can parent it. And if we do like a rotation as well, it's going to rotate with it. Let's do just run around. And then it's right now the anchor point is over here outside. So we also want to drag the anchor point back. And then it just basically doing this orbit. So that's the parenting anchor point. And then the null object is basically if I go to create a layer new null object, it works the same way as a parenting thing, but the null object is an invisible object. It doesn't have any visual information. You just basically parent maybe your layer. I'll hit U on the keyboard to delete those. And then you just parent those to the null object. And then once my null object moves, it's going to move all the other layer that's parented to the null. So that way we can control more layers with just one null object instead of like creating, position property keyframes on all these 3 layers, which is, pretty hard to manage. Now we just have 2 keyframes to manage 3, 4, even more layers. So that's how the null object works. And the next thing I want to talk about is track matte. Track matte is a different concept that I want you to understand. And after the track matte, we'll get into the actual animation. So track matte basically is a mask. Let's say we have still a text layer, track matte. And then let's go to layer, add a new solid, create this orange here. Let's put it on top of the track matte, move it here. Basically, if I want to review this text, I can animate this orange solid layer, just have it, cover the whole thing from here to here. Very simple animation, covering the whole text. And now if I use this layer as a track matte, let's go select this track matte over here. With the track matte text selected, let's use this orange layer as a matte. So what happens is wherever this orange layer is visible, it's going to make the text underneath it visible. So right now, my orange layer is covering all my text. And if I make this eye icon invisible, it's basically a mask to show your object on and off. So right now, if I turn this layer on, you can see I don't see my track matte text layer anymore because it's not covering my text. So this way, I can use an invisible mask to show a transition of my text layer without animating the text layer. It's very important concept to have an invisible track mat that's showing and covering the element that's underneath it. Basically, wherever this track mat is visible, is make the layer underneath it visible. Did I explain it clearly? Yeah, good, good. Okay, we're gonna use that in the animation. Okay, cool. So that's that, and then I'm gonna show another couple of gray animation, and then after that, we're gonna get it straight into the UI UX actual animation that I prepared. Just want to show you a couple shorts from Ravie as well. Just pay attention to the easing. It's so loud. Okay, that's one reel. And then, yeah, you can see there's a ton of easing to it. There's also squash and stretch, the animation principle that we talked about, and maybe some anticipation and overshoot as well. Everything just like synchronized so well with music and the elements animating. So even like with the simple shapes, after we apply the animation principles and the easing, it just looks so satisfying. See? So that's all the the possibilities you will get after you understand how to apply the animation principles, timing and spacing. Let's get into the actual animation. Let's first go to the Illustrator file that I prepared. We're going to work on these two frames first. So I have my Illustrator layer set up. This is a basic UI UX panel. And then we need to go to layers panel. I already did that. I want to show you again, maybe. Let's go. So remember, like we talked about how to separate those files. We need to have these layers separated. Just one click of button from this drop-down menu. Click on this release to layer sequence. Basically, this is going to release all the different elements on its own layer. And we already did that, so it's good for now. Right now, we have all these different layers. However, we have two artboards. So when we import Illustrator file into After Effects, we can only import one artboard at a time. So what we need to do is go save as, and then we need to maybe save it to storyboard 3, go save it, and then click on save each artboard to a separate file. Click on open. Oh, okay. And then we're going to have two artboards. Now we should have two Illustrator file that's containing two different artboards. Now let's go to my composition. Let me just change my composition to 1080 by 1080. And then we're going to import my Illustrator file. Let's import this one first. We need to go to composition, retain layer sizes. Make sure you don't click on this Illustrator sequence. It's going to mess up with your timeline. Just keep it unchecked. Click on open. Now we have this composition layer. Double click on here. Let's copy everything. Command C, and then go back to the main composition. This is going to be our working area. That's good. We have all these all laid out. The good thing about importing from Illustrator is all the composition is already there. The layout is already perfect, so you don't have to worry about it. So now I just want to animate this element here. I can change the preview resolution. Right now it's a bit pixelated. I'll change it to full resolution. First, we can animate this text layer. Let's go hit P on the keyboard to pull up the position property. So basically, if I add a keyframe on the position property, this is going to be my ending position. And I'll drag this keyframe maybe forward a little bit to 15th frame. This is my ending position of my text. And the beginning position, I just wanted to maybe come in from the right. And this is my animation. And remember, we need to do a easing to it. Go to keyframe assistant, easy ease. Everything we talked about, we are going to use a speed graph. In this case, I can hit this button, fit graph to view. In this case, I want it to easing in like this with this extreme easing, maybe like a 90% influence at the back end, and then all the way, this is like 0% at the beginning. So I want it to come in like really fast and easing in into position. And then to pair with this curve, I need to cut the layer maybe around here in the middle. I want to cut the layer, hold down Option left square bracket, cut it down. You can also drag this layer curve, like use your mouse cursor to drag it to cut it here. So that right now in the front, there's nothing, no information. There's only information starting from the 7th frame. And then I'm gonna move this layer to the start, just short of 1 frame. So we don't have animation at the 0 second. Let's play this animation. You see, that's how we animate this part here. Basically, we just cut it maybe around here and then put it here. Okay, that's good. And now I just want to separate each line to do a offset. I need to duplicate the layer 2 times. Select this layer, Command D, duplicate. And then this first one, I'll use a mask, go to rectangle tool. I can draw a mask over here. And then the second one, I'll mask out the second line. And then the third one, I'll mask out this. Oops. So the third one, move it up a little bit because the eye is cut off. Okay, that's good. And now we have 3 lines in 3 layers. And next thing, I just want to offset the layer a little bit. So go forward maybe 2 frames, 1, 2, and then move the second layer where my timeline indicator is, and then go to another 2 frames forward, move this one over here. So now we have a offset, and this is the animation. So you can see with only 2 simple keyframes, we basically just use 2 simple keyframes and then duplicate the layer and then offset it. This is the animation that we get. It's a bit complex. And now we can animate this little circle here. So we have this number 3 here, and then we have the circle here. So in this case, I want to parent the 3 to the circle, so I only need to animate one thing. Let's hit S on the keyboard for scale property. Let's just maybe add a keyframe over here, and then I want the scale to come in from 0%, maybe zooming up to 100%, just like a zoom in. And remember the overshoot that we talked about? Before it comes back to 100%, I'll go backward a couple frames, maybe change it to 110% to do an overshoot, almost like a bounce. So with the 3 keyframes selected, I'll go to Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, and this is my speed graph. I'll just do a. So in terms of like the influence percentage, I think most of the time it just depends on like what you like. For me, I would like to go around like 75% to 85% range. So that's like good enough to give you a lot of energy, and then at the same time not looking too boring. With like around 80%, I think that works for most cases. For the overshoot, I'll just tweak it maybe to a slight smaller number. Let's see what it looks like. So it just pop in and then settle down. Over here, there's a slight overshoot. That's good. Now I'll put this one up. And then I want to animate this background rectangle coming in as well. We'll do the same thing. Hit P on the keyboard for position. I will set a keyframe. This is my ending position. I'll drag my ending position forward. And then the starting position, I'll drag this all the way down. It's automatically adding a keyframe. We have this coming up like this. And then we just select 2 keyframes, go to Easy Ease it. We'll do extreme curve like this as well. And then we're going to cut the layer maybe in half, same way we animate the text. And then I'll drop this one backward. So now we just need to make sure everything is synced properly. I want this background to come in first. I'll drag these backward a little bit, forward a little bit. So we have the background coming in, and then we have the circle coming in with number. And then after the circle comes in, I want the text to come in. So this is going to be our animation. That's pretty simple. Okay, that's good for this. Then we can go double click in the empty area in the project. Let me drop in my second artboard. Make sure we select the composition retain layer sizes. It's going to keep the same size that we had within Illustrator, and then click on open. Let's go inside this composition. We can copy everything, Command C, go back to my working area, and then just select the first keyframe and Command V paste it in, so that is pasting on top. Now I'll drag everything to the back, all the layer to the back, so it's not covering my previous animation.
Hey, Hongshu, is there an order of how you like to animate like objects, text, and things?
I think there's no order. For me, I just normally do whatever I feel like first. There's only 3 elements right now in this scene. You can animate like anything first. But one thing to remember is that to always animate at the beginning of the keyframe. So we would like to do the animation in steps. You don't want to think about how these elements are going to come in synchronized with each other yet. When you animate, you just animate how they move first. Let's say right now, like I should at the beginning, everything should like come in at the same time when we animate. And then after we have the animation ready, we're gonna stagger them, offset them to give it a good rhythm and good order or flow. So basically when you animate, you always animate at the start of the layer. And then later on, you can drag them to place them differently to see when you want each element to come in. But there's no order, I think. For me, like there's no order. Any other questions? Good. Okay.
I have 2 questions. One,
Yeah.
I'm curious, like at what number of layers in one composition do you like to start nesting compositions? And then my other question is, I was thinking about this with the trim path. I've been playing a lot with the newer tool in Illustrator where you can adjust the stroke width, and how does that do with importing that into After Effects?
Oh, as long as that has the stroke within Illustrator, once you, like I showed before, once you do right click and then create shape from vector layer, it's going to remain like preserve that stroke effect within the new shape layer. And then if you have that stroke, you can add this trim path, because basically trim path is to animate the stroke. If you have a shape, it doesn't really work with the shape. It mostly just work with like a stroke. But if you have the stroke in Illustrator, once you create shape from vector layers, it's going to have the stroke, and then you can use trim path. And then the first question, like for me, to be honest, like you never nest a comp unless you need it. It's not a matter of how many layers. So like I guess people work differently. They have their preferences. Maybe some people feel like it's easy to work within different comps, but for me, like I find it's really easy to have everything within this one thing. And then later on, like as you progress in your project, you feel like maybe the first set is done, and there's like not much you want to do about it. You can just nest it and then maybe create like put other effects onto that nested folder. So basically, for me, normally I would do the nesting when it's necessary. Meaning, like if I want to add special effects or like glow on top of that whole group, I would nest them together. Or like if I want to move them or give it another layer of animation, I would nest them. But like if that's not what I want to do, like I wouldn't just bother nesting them. I would just have them like laid out all within this one composition, so that it's easier to change everything to see how everything's synchronized. Because once you nest it, you have to go inside different groups, and then the preview is going to show like the outside, and then sometimes you change things inside. It doesn't show in the preview how it works with the group outside. So that gets a bit complicated. So yeah, to that question, like I normally do it when it's necessary.
Totally. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Just was curious about your preference.
Yeah, cool. So we have these here, and then first we want to get rid of the first scene. I just want to maybe let's go select add a null object, and then let's drop it down here. Let's parent this background. I'm supposed to name these layers. Like it's a really good practice to name the layers, but since we don't have a lot of time, so I would just have these like layer numbers. We can select all the layers. These are the text layer and my rectangle shape. I'll parent it to the null, and then from here, once it settles, I'll hit P on the keyboard. Maybe just do a. Sorry, I'm going to move these ones out of the way. I'll just do a position change to drop it down, so it's out of the scene. And then to do that, we can also add a anticipation, maybe like 3 frames of anticipation. Add a keyframe, and then I'll copy the starting keyframe just within the Y position. I drag it up a little bit so it goes up first before I drop down. So that's the anticipation. And then we're gonna another way to add a keyframe velocity is there's also a keyframe velocity function here. So remember, I was talking about the influence. We can actually set it here. It's pretty straightforward. I say if we want to do 75% of influence, we don't have to drag the curve anymore. It's already set to 75. But this way, you can only set it like the same number mostly for all the keyframes. If you have more keyframes, it's better to control everything individually within the graph. let's see what this looks like. I think 75 might be too much, or maybe I need to give it a little bit more time. I'll just get it to maybe 60. I think over here, it's a bit jarring over here. So I'll just, smooth this out. I think I'm moving it up too much. So it's like all of a sudden it's going up out of no reason. 540. So right now my Y position is at 540. I'm gonna maybe change it to like 525. Just to smooth out a little bit.
There's something good happening here. I think the tree is being left behind at some point. That I would love to see how you fix that. If you play it, I think the number 3, like the circle with the 3.
Yeah. I also want to do the transition between the 3 to this, because we're gonna have.
Oh, wonderful. Okay, thank you for clarifying.
No
Love
problem.
that.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna do the transition from the 3 to this thing because it has a 3 inside. But like, we're gonna work on the 3 right now. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So let's do the 3 right now. We have, because the 3 right now is parent to the circle, so we only need to animate the circle. Let's hit P on the keyboard to animate the position. And let's add a keyframe over here. So let's go forward a couple of frames and then drop it down as a anticipation, and then go forward a couple of frames. So move it up. So this is covering my 3 as well. So I'm gonna do this, and then over here, and then I'm gonna drop it down. Just want to make sure it's not covering my 3 here. I also want to see like where's my, let me put the 3 all the way up the front so I see where that 3 is. This is going to be the final position of the 3, so I'm just aligning this one with the final position. And then let's hit scale as well. We need to make it bigger. So right now we have the 3 over here. We just need to make it a little bigger so that it matches with my final position. Something like that. And then we can also add a overshoot as well. Let's see. So this is going to be the final position. Let me overshoot it over here a little bit so it comes back. So, excuse me. Now we have a anticipation goes down and then goes up. Further goes up. Maybe I just drag it over here on the X position a little bit. This is the top of the element, and then it drops down. And if I show you the animation now, it doesn't have any energy, so it's going to be something like this. It's going to be pretty boring and not so natural. Let's go easy keyframe. Let's go to the graph editor. So what we can do is we can manipulate these curves a little bit. And drag these curves to give it some influence, maybe to like around 75% of influence. I want to see what it looks like, and we can adjust from there. Let's see what it looks like. Yeah, it's already looking pretty good. So once we have the curves in, you can see it's got some energy. It's got some life to this circle. It's going down and then shoot up. And then we have this top really big curve going down. And then there's also an overshoot at the end. So that's my number 3 here. And now what I want to do is once my number 3 is going down, I want to review these layers. So I don't even need to do any animation on these. Basically, I need to find, where is my number 1? This is my number 1. Number 2. Number 3. So this is my number 1 and the number 1 circle. once my number 3 go past it, around here, I want to cut this layer in, so it's revealing this circle here. And then if I go forward, once I go past the 2, I'll find the circle. So drop it here. And then the number 3, once it settles, I'll just have the layer number 3 cut in. Let's see what it looks like now. Yeah, right now it's not coming down in a straight line. Maybe that's a bit not super clean. I can also adjust the path so that it's mostly just covering my number 1, number 2 when it goes down. So it's the transition is a bit more clean. Now, if I should maybe move this one here a little bit. Yeah, this way, like it's almost covering in a straight line. So the transition is a bit more clean. Once I have this number 3 go past it, I'll cut this layer in. There's no animation, just cut it in. So it's revealing the 1, 2, and 3. We'll do the same thing for these. So this one's going to come in at the same time of my number 1. And then this layer is same time as number 3. And then the second layer, excuse me. Okay, I need to drink water. Okay, this is our animation. I'm just basically aligning these layers when the number 3 is coming down. So this like this. Right now it's showing 2 layers, so I need to move the number 3 even back when it goes settle in position. How about this? Oh no. So this layer should come in first. Or I don't even need this number 3 because we already have number 3 over here. Yeah, that's our animation for now. And yeah, you can see how we apply the animation principles, anticipation and overshoot, and how we adjust the graphs. So that's our animation for this one. Do we have any questions? So I think we can still go through another set of animation after the question.
I would like to kind of get a feel from the rest of the team. I know that we only have 20 minutes left. One of the things that I would like to see on show is to set the way that we can save it now, right? Like the different ways that we can save this animation. And pretty much
the saving?
Yeah, the saving, because
Oh,
that's
okay,
like
okay.
the final step for us, and that how we are going to use it. You know, like for example, the format, if it's going to be a GIF, if it's usually GIF, it's more like we may use it in different, like we can use it in social media, we can use it in the website, but also move, MOV. So yeah, that's something that I would like to see. But I would like to open it to the rest of the team to see if there's anything else with the time, if there's better like quick question and answer or anything else. Just sticking a vibe here from the team.
Yeah. Any questions or?
Yeah, actually 2 questions. How did you move the layers up and down? Were you holding like a specific key to just like
Move the layer up and down? You mean like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah, so you just select them and okay.
Oh, you
Gotcha.
just select them
Yeah.
and drop them. It's same to Photoshop.
Okay.
You just select them and then drop them to the order you like.
And my second question was, you mentioned before like speed velocity for like good energy is like 75 to 85%. For
Yeah.
doing like something like gentler motion, like a leaf falling off of a tree, like what speed range are you thinking of if you're trying to go for like that type of
Falling
pace?
off a tree, is that going to be like slowly and then all speeding up, accelerating, right?
Yeah, I guess slowly or accelerating.
Yeah, it depends. It's really, I can show you quickly right now. So let's say if we, because you know what, let me just create a different composition. It's gonna be quick. So for a thing falling, I think it could be like if it's accelerating, you should have like a bigger influence at the end, and then maybe like extreme easing curve in the front. But for falling, mostly we would like to do a separating dimension, maybe like a white position animation. Let's try this one. Let's make it smaller. And then we're gonna do, if like the falling takes more time, I think we would like to adjust the timing instead of spacing to give it like more time to fall. Maybe like this much. And then let's go to curve. I already separated the dimension, so we can maybe adjust the value curve. So most like for falling, mostly there is going to be a slow curve at the front and then accelerating and hit the ground. So it would be like something like this. Sorry, not so extreme. Maybe even more extreme. It's actually easier to work with value graph for falling, like this, right? Almost like a falling, and then you can actually add, if I go forward and then add a different keyframe and then go to the graph editor, I can actually adjust this curve like this to create a bounce. So this is a quick animation for a bounce. And then if I go forward a couple frames again, I'm holding down Command key and add another keyframe and just like drag another curve. And then maybe hold down Command key, drag, hit a keyframe again, do like a couple bounces. And this is how we animate a bouncing animation. And if I see the key, and you can see there's weight to the ball. So that's how we do a fall and bounce. It's really easy to control with the graph editor. Like if you don't know, or if you don't use graph editor, like there's really no way that you can create like a natural fall or bounce to it. For mostly like when I'm animating bouncing or falling, I'm using like value graph. But speed graph should work as well. You can explore that, see like what works. Any other questions? Hope?
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you use for a resource? The hardest part for me is always learning the shortcut keys. Do you guys have a resource that you readily use, or is it just kind of baked in at this point?
No, I don't have any resource for hotkeys. It's baked in, but to be honest, like you don't need to know, like we said, 80-20 rule. You don't need to know like every single keyboard shortcuts. I think like the most common ones are going to be just around maybe 10 to 20 that you use most of the time. Like it's really not hard to I remember like 10 keyboard shortcuts, but they are similar to Photoshop. Like they're also very intuitive. Like let's say for this layer, like if I want to animate position, I'll hit P on the keyboard, that's position, and then R is for rotation, S is for scale, and T is for opacity, which stands for transparency, right? So yeah, like I don't really have a resource because what I found is like all these resources, they put like hundreds of keyboard shortcuts together and you don't know like which one's really useful. So that's like, giving you 100% of the resources and then like you don't know how to learn it. And then it's not like a dictionary that you want to remember, right? So yeah, I guess like good thing is maybe just find a couple ones that you want to remember, like you feel like that's most useful when you work on stuff that you want to figure out like what the keyboard shortcut that function is, and then just after a couple times using it, you're going to remember it. No need to like intentionally remember all the keyboard shortcuts. I didn't like intentionally remember anything. It just once I practice a little bit, I just naturally remember a couple of useful ones. Yeah, just focus on the 20% that give you the most results. Don't like try to remember everything. Any other questions?
Yeah, I love the 20% rule. I'm going to keep that for us to keep using. So so my question about savings, saving files. So I would like to see how you save the animation we did together that you did for us.
Yeah.
And I would also like to see, which is maybe GIF or move, but also this bouncing. How can we save it as a transparent background, right?
Got you, no problem. So let's say there's a couple ways you can save. Let's say this is my animation, and I need to make sure I'm selecting the range that I want to save. Right now, you see this work area. The keyboard shortcut for this is beginning and end. So B is like beginning. If I hit B, it's going to cut this work area. And then if I hit N, it's going to cut it at the end. So basically, B and N is where you want to save. This work area is going to be the area you export. And then two ways to save. One, you just need to go to composition. One is to add to Adobe Media Encoder queue, and then the other is render queue. The difference is Adobe Media Encoder is a different software that's made for saving. If you save in Adobe Media Encoder, you can still work within After Effects. So if you have a big file that you want to export for 2 hours, you can move it to Adobe Encoder, and it's gonna save over there, exporting for 2 hours while you can still work within After Effects. But once you save within After Effects using the render queue, you couldn't really do any other work. You just have to use this software to save. So let's try the Adobe Media Encoder. Normally I use Adobe Media Encoder, but I think there's not much big difference other than just one allows you to keep working. While this one is opening, you know what? Let me do this first while this one is opening. Let's add to render queue. And then over here is render queue. There's output module. Let's click on this high quality. So within this one, we can click on the format option. There is different format over here. We can choose the default one would be the Apple ProRes 422. Whoops, sorry, go back. So the default would be Apple ProRes, and then I don't really use anything else. Like, I only use 2 from this list. One is Apple ProRes 422. The other one is Apple ProRes 4444. This one allows you to save alpha channel. So like you said, the transparent background, the alpha channel, this is the one that you want to use if you want to use the alpha channel transparent background. For now, this project, we don't have one, so we select Apple ProRes, click OK. And then the format over here, it's either a QuickTime or H.264 that I use. This doesn't have a GIF option in the render queue, but the Adobe Media Encoder has a GIF option. So over here, most of the time I save it as H.264, and then the video output would be the RGB color. Oh, this one has an alpha as well. I never use that. Maybe you can try. I never use like H.264 with an alpha. I don't think this works. I think we need to, yeah, this one is not going to work, because in terms of alpha, we need to use the RGB plus alpha. This is only going to give you like a black and white alpha instead of with all the color information of your illustration. So basically, we just need to select H.264, click OK, and then select a folder. And then maybe just output, create, and then we can just click on render. That's how we save. And then let's go back to the output. This is my MP4. That's the MP4. If you want to save an alpha, let's delete this background. We have this ball dropping. Let's go to render queue. And then in the format option, let's choose 444. It has to be saved as RGB plus alpha, and then click on OK. This one would be click on save and then render. This one would be saved as an alpha, but in the preview, it shows as black. If I drop this one, if I create a new composition, maybe with the red background. Oh, sorry. So with the red background, I can drop this video that we just exported. And you can see this is actually an alpha channel with the ball bouncing. And in terms of alpha channel, you can only export alpha channel within the MOV format. There's no alpha channel in the MP4 format. MP4 doesn't hold alpha, so it's only within the MOV. So that's how we do the alpha channel export and the common like MP4. And for the Adobe Media Encoder, I already click on this one, and it's open Adobe Media Encoder. This is the export setting. We can change the export setting to H.264, which is a standard format for MP4. We can also do an animated GIF. If we do animated GIF, there's a couple settings within the animated GIF. You can change the size of it. Normally, I never touch this. I just like select the GIF and then go to this export, click on save, and then we can click on this play button. It's going to save this one. Over here, we have this GIF. Right now, the GIF is like 8 megabytes. It might be too big. Most of the time, like if you export GIF from After Effects, it might be too big. There's also plugins that you can download, like the GIF Gun plugin is a good plugin. I never use it. For me, like the workflow for me is to export as an MP4 and then use Photoshop to convert it to GIF, because in Photoshop, there's different options. You can like change the color setting, dial like a couple settings back so that you can make the GIF smaller. So that's my like kind of workflow. If you don't worry about the size of the GIF, you can do like a export from this Adobe Media Encoder. But if you want to nail down the size, you have to use like a MP4 first, and then go back to Photoshop to export the GIF. So let's do it again. For this one, if I go to main composition, media encoder, so GIF is a good option, and then you can do MP4. That's good. And then there's also QuickTime. So for me, for media encoder, it's mostly MP4. I would just like select output folder, click OK. Oh, okay, I need to maybe name this one too. And then we can export an MP4. So yeah, those are like different options we can use. For media encoder, if you want to save alpha channel, I never done that before. Maybe there's option. So yeah, I don't want to, we only focus on 20%. We don't want to like confuse you, right? So those are everything I think you should need in terms of saving your file, I guess. Any other questions?
I had a
yeah.
question. Our alpha setting, is that normally done for just like transparency reasons, or just wondering like when is that applied to as a setting for animation?
Got you. For alpha channel, it's mostly for transparent background. I can't think of any other scenario. Like sometimes videos, like people shoot videos, like say, like if you have a beer bottle that you want to roll over something, and then maybe you had the photo shoot, and then like a motion designer or animator would need to cut it out, maybe rotoscope it, and then you have this like animation of the bottle rolling on a like transparent background, and then you would save as a MOV with alpha, and then you send it to a different team who is going to do like post-production animation. Or like if you have a couple elements that you want to use and it's already baked in animation, you won't be able to change anything. You just export the MOV with alpha and you send it to a different team member, and then they're gonna use that as like a animation that's already baked in for like a different project. So I guess yeah, mostly it's for transparent background. I don't think there's any other thing that I can recall that needs alpha. Any other questions? I also prepared like a couple, maybe not a couple, just one more, but like we didn't have time to go through it. I'll send like all these files to you, Amelia, and then the working file and then the illustration, and your team can like, maybe test it out and see, like explore a couple of things that we taught today. I think like the best way to learn is by practice, right? Sometimes like you understand things and then all of a sudden, if you don't practice at all, you're gonna forget everything in 2 days, right? So hopefully like today, like I made you realize that animation is not that hard and After Effects is really fun, yeah, you can, I think you are more than equipped to like explore things on your own, and then to like, focus on the animation principles, the easing when you're doing your animation or like exploring. So, like what's the most important thing? What is the 20% that we need to, master before everything else to be like a good animator, I guess. Yeah, thank you so much for having us as well. We are really excited to share these knowledge with like beginners, especially who are interested in learning animation. Because like, I think a lot of people who want to start, they are too intimidated by like the software itself, and they're like kind of overwhelmed by all the different features and effects. And there's like, so for us, like we focus on the most important thing, right? So like we said, 80-20 rule, you don't have to learn everything. Like you can just focus on really the fundamentals, the stuff that matters the most, that give you like the most results. So yeah, we're excited to be here as well. Appreciate your time, all your time as well.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.